Welcome to TTC Podcast 27. I'm Craig,
I'm Brian.
and we've got a all Ford podcast for you, Brian, because we've been in a lot of Fords lately, and there's actually some fun Fords to talk about in this one. It's not that we're trying to be biased for or against Fords. That's not what's going on here, but
It's just our run of press cars at the moment. We're on a Ford run. That's what that is.
we're just on a Ford run, and we've had some cool ones. And I'll just list those off real quick, and we'll talk about them in this order. We had the Ford Maverick Hybrid, which was fun for us because it's our first time to get our hands on the hybrid version. We've had all the other versions, but not that one. And then we had two Lightnings back to back, EV Life 2 weeks in a row, which we're going to dig into some of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Brian, I haven't had a chance to play with it yet. You're in it right now. The Raptor R. Oh, yes. We're going to get into that.
No, it's the Raptor freaking R. The thing is awesome.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the graphics were wrong. They did put a freaking in there.
Right.
But
Right.
so Brian, let's just dive in right there. Let's just dive in with the Maverick Hybrid. That's the one we had the longest to go. But let's kind of recap the ones we've had, and then let's dig into the Maverick Hybrid.
Okay. Well, like you said, we've had all those, and then the Maverick Hybrid. I kind of want your take on this more than mine, actually, because going into this, I set a internal dialogue of the 2-liter turbo is probably still what I would prefer. But you've convinced me that there's a person that wants the hybrid and it makes sense for them. I'll let you get into it, but I left with, yes, you're right. There's a market for that. It will get 42 miles a gallon without really trying, which is god awful impressive. But I still prefer the hot hatchiness of the 2-liter turbo. That's just preference, though. And all the other Maverick stuff is pretty, it's the exact same. It's really comfortable. It's got way more space than you think it does. And the materials used are incredibly, incredibly cheap. And that's because it used to be cheap.
But, I mean, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's dive into that. Yeah, we had the hot hatchy versions like you've talked about. Those would be fun in their own ways. Obviously, the video will be out soon, so you can see all that. If it's not we got the hybrid one up yet?
It's not up yet, but it's coming up soon. So by the time this podcast goes up, it should be
coming up very
quickly.
Coming up very soon, but we've got the other ones out there already where we had the all-wheel drive and the front-wheel drive 2 liters. So those are you can go check those out now. But Brian, I was excited about this one because to me, the Maverick idea in general is cheap and efficient. That's to me what was exciting from the get-go.
Cheap and efficient and still truck.
Yes, and that's what I mean. And so because we've had cheap and truck before, Ranger,
right?
We've had cheap and kind of fun before, but we've never had the efficient part go along with it as much as it should have.
Right.
Which is one of the problems with the midsize trucks we have today. You get a Ford Ranger or an Avalanche or whatever, you're not getting a whole lot better gas mileage over the full-sizer.
Right.
In fact, there's not a whole lot of trade-off between the midsize and the full-size other than the actual size of the truck itself, which we have since learned that is great on trails. But if you're not doing trail runs, get the full-size, right?
Right, which is why the full-sizes sell more. And to your point, you typically can't have all three. You can't have cheap and truck and efficient. You can't have all those together.
Right.
And this is the first time in a very long time that that's been even an option. To have truly efficient and truck and affordable. Those don't three all. You get two, you never get three together.
And that's why I was excited about the hybrid. I'm not excited about the CVT part. Not excited about necessarily the hybrid part, but I was excited about the fuel efficient part because it's also the cheapest version. A lot of times hybrids are the upgraded powertrain in a lot of cars.
Right.
Not in this. So our particular hybrid was, how much was it? 28,000, 27,000?
It was a little more. It was a Lariat trim, which really befuddled both of us. I think it was cracking like 30, almost 33 with the updated pricing, post-COVID updated pricing.
Correct.
A little bit to put it out there for those that may not be aware. Basically, brands have said, well, instead of dealers taking this markup, we're going to take that markup for ourselves, which I'm okay with that. I don't have a debate with that. I just have a feeling that in the near future, we're going to see cash on the hoods in the form of rebates because of this shift in pricing. So the Maverick used to be a $20,000 proposition, stripped, hybrid or gas. Take your pick on motor. They were both like right at 20, maybe a pinch over. Now they're not. Now it's like 22 starting, a little more than 22 starting, and it kind of goes up incrementally from there. And you made a great point while we're driving it. The Lariat kind of makes no sense at all
Yeah,
because
yeah.
what do you get with the Lariat trim in particular?
You get vinyl seats
Yep,
that
not
are,
leather. They call it leather. It is not leather. It's vinyl for sure.
yeah, and let's just, we can camp there for a minute if we want to. I'm about sick of people calling the seats leather when they're just vinyl. But anyways, yeah.
Right.
So what you do is you get colored vinyl seats instead of the XL.
Right. And then this particular one we had was actually black interior. So like there was no gain. We've driven the Lariat before with the brown leather seats, like the saddle color, and you're like, okay, that's like a premium color palette that I wouldn't get elsewhere.
Right.
In this
You do.
case, just get the stripped one or get the XLT, which is between the XL stripped one and the Lariat, and save yourself like 3 or 4 grand and lose nothing. Like you didn't even get heated
Nah,
seats with the Lariat. Like what
no.
are we talking about here?
I
Made
mean,
no
you get
sense to me.
standard leather steering wheel. You don't have to get it's an option on the
Oh,
XLT.
true. Okay,
You do
true.
get standard cruise control, which is an option on the XL.
Right.
So I mean, I guess you get some things, but you don't get a bigger touchscreen. You don't get heated seats, like
Right.
you said. You don't get real leather. You
You don't
don't
get
get
radar cruise control.
you don't get radar cruise control still. Um, I'm with you. Just save $4,000 and get the XLT. The XLT is the sweet spot to me. It's only
Totally.
about 2 grand more spec the way I want over the XL, and you get the cool looking cloth seats. You do get cruise control, and you can get an option for the leather steering wheel if you want, and that's the sweet spot.
Right. And like you said, the textiles that were, and when you said this in the review, the textiles that were on the XLT that we had in trimmer flavor look really cool. They're like a cool looking backpack material, and so and they breathe, unlike the vinyl or the leather. Just stick with that one. I think that's the way to go.
Yeah.
The Lariat makes little to no sense. Now we did have the blackout package, which gave
Hmm.
you tinted headlights and taillights and black wheels.
Hmm.
I'm not really a black wheel guy, but it did work with the color this one was. It looked cool. I just still wouldn't get it. I'd go with the XLT. That's pretty much all there is to it. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
CVTs do suck. You're right.
Well, okay. Now listen, let's get into the actual hybrid part of it now. So
Okay.
I'm excited about I was excited about the hybrid part because of the fuel economy. It's like, let's see if it actually gets what it say it's going to get. And I can't
Hmm.
remember what the actual EPA ratings are off the top of my head right now. I could look them up. But the point is, they usually like it's around 40 miles per gallon. I can't remember cities. I think a little bit higher, highways a little bit lower.
Right.
So it might be like 42, 38, something like that. But here's where I'm at. We got 40 in it basically. I got it in
Right.
my drive. You got even better in your drive
Right.
to
Because
be
I
able,
do urban
yeah,
driving.
to be able to get close to 40 miles per gallon in a vehicle that can do so. Well, I'll just say this: 90% of the truck things that most people do with trucks,
Oh,
and be
totally.
roomy and comfortable and cool looking and not expensive. Again, this is a home run. The hybrid makes more sense to me in my application. As much as I see the fun of the 2-liter turbo, and it's fun in its own way in different ways, this the hybrid just makes so much sense, and I thought it was amazing.
Yeah, I'm with you. The hybrid makes a lot of sense for the driver. So, hey, I just pulled up the MPG ratings. It's 42 city, 33 highway,
Wow.
37 combined. So that
Okay.
highway drops a lot, but you were getting 40 in your drive. So
Yeah.
that it just overachieved in a big way. And that kind of,
Hmm.
I kind of go, okay, well, look, if this is the goal, then the CVT is how you get there.
Yeah.
So merit and credit where it's due.
Hmm. Well, and one of the cool things, one of my favorite things about it, and Ford's did a really good job with this, and they do good with ergonomics and infotainment,
Oh man.
generally speaking, anyways.
Right.
But they did a really good job in the center cluster. It showed you electric miles. So you knew exactly how far you were driving on a 50-mile trip. X amount of miles of that were electric only. And it
Right.
comes on way more often than you expect it to, not even really noticing it. So, I mean, I'd drive 50 miles to work, but possibly getting 15 of those miles might have been electric only.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. And I like how they did that.
Yeah, and I was seeing as much as like 30% of my mileage was electric. Because once I got into the urban areas off of the interstate, it would just roll all the way around in
Yeah.
EV. It was very, and I didn't have to try very hard. It wasn't like I was pinky toeing around everywhere to make that happen. It just did it.
Hmm.
So it was awesome.
All
All
right,
right,
Brian,
hey,
but oh, go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say it's probably time to talk about lightnings.
Well, before we go talk about lightnings, Brian, I want to talk about, is there anything bad we want to talk about the Maverick?
Oh,
Build quality.
yeah. Well, let's get into that. Let's see. The dash speaker cover was warped. The fuel door, which I found out later on, I was just the idiot. I thought it was broken. It was not. But someone before us thought the same thing and had pulled the manual release cable from the fender well out to open it because there's a button on the dash that other models of Maverick have not had. Typically on Ford, you just push the door and then it pops back open. But
It was weird because most Fords do not do that. So
right, but that was not broken. I was just not doing it right. In all fairness, but there's one more thing actually, there's two more things I've got to add. I'm sure you've got more too. The speakers, the stereo in general is just. It's like they're trying to make the worst stereo on sale today. Like and that's
Honda
again,
might have something to say about that.
maybe, but I don't know. I think this is still worse. The it's so bad. I've never experienced a stereo that bad because at least the Honda press cars we get are loaded up and they're like, okay, they're at least like they're good ones, not great, but at least it's not the worst. And the ones we usually get. This
Sure.
Maverick, if you're gonna play the Lariat game, you better fix that 4-speaker stereo. That is
No,
inexcusable.
absolutely.
It's like they were. I don't know what's going on there, but usually, Fisher Price things sound better than that. And then also the left lower suspension just
Yes.
made noise. It just rattled. And I
Yep.
even talked to the Ford guys and they picked it up and they're like, "Yeah, we've been hearing that too," and they couldn't quite pinpoint it. It just is what it is. It's weird.
Yeah, it was kind of that was probably the most frustrating because I was very excited about this vehicle, and
Me too.
a lot
Yeah.
of people are interested in this vehicle that see me in these cars, and they wanted to know about it. And you maybe give someone a ride in, and they're like, "What is that rattling? It sounds like a shock's blown or a strut's going,
Right.
not mounted right or something." You're like, "Well, yeah,
It might
that's
be.
the problem. Might be."
And then
And they're
like the
like,
door handles are trying to
"Yeah,
cut you all the time because they're not quite cut well and that kind of stuff from their
yeah,
moldings
it's
and
not finished off quite." Yeah.
right. And this
And
gets back to the COVID cars theory that you came up with, which is true in this
yeah,
case.
so the COVID car theory is kind of twofold. One, be careful buying any car built between 2019 and 2021, maybe 2022. Well, actually, let's just include 2022.
Yeah, and 3,
Um,
let's be honest.
and most of 23.
Yeah,
And then, yeah, and actually 19s might be okay. It's probably 20 to 23. But
right.
the second part of that is especially any car that was rolled out and launched during
Oh,
COVID,
yeah. Oh,
they've
yeah.
really got problems because they have not fine-tuned production on those yet. Versus the trucks you're getting ready to get into, that's not a problem.
Right, and I think you just nailed it. The Maverick was born during COVID.
Yeah.
It's never known what a good car is.
Right.
So it's in that scenario, and look, it breaks my heart because this is I'll still stand by it. It's a good product. It's a good concept product, and I'm not gonna tell anyone not to buy one. What I'm gonna say is get your butt in the seat of the particular one you're trying to buy and make sure there's not anything going on. These things do have warranties and that kind of stuff, but if it doesn't feel quite right, then go look at a different one. That's kind of where I'm going to land because they're not all bad, but we've had a mixed bag of reliability across all brands recently, and so I'm just a little more weary of some of these things.
Mhm. No, absolutely. It's a little bit of a problem. But Brian, let's get into the next thing you mentioned earlier. Sorry, it is lightning time. Cue the
Oh
whatever
yeah,
sounds here. Yeah. Oh, good job. And so we don't
that
need a
was organic.
soundboard. We got our own
Yeah,
voices. But
we're just idiots. We can do that.
so the F-150 Lightning is built in its own plant, designed just for the Lightning. If I'm
Rouge.
correct, is that
Yep, the
okay?
Rouge
Rouge.
plant in
Thank you,
Detroit.
thank you.
Yep,
Yep. And Brian Ford's been making F-150s for a while. It is their bread and butter. They're going to make
yep.
sure the F-150 is right, whether it's EV, gas, whatever. Build quality, not an issue. We've had two Lightnings. Brian, tell us about these
Back
two
to back.
Lightnings. Yeah, back
Yeah.
to back.
Okay, and these are both 22 models, by the way. We didn't get these last year. We just didn't get them in a run. We couldn't schedule it right, so we're getting them a little bit later. So these are the exclusion to our COVID rule because these two, and I'll let you chime in too. But we started out with the Lightning Pro. That was 2 weeks ago from recording right now. And the Pro, for those who don't know, is effectively the XL trim, so it's the stripped one.
Yeah, a little confusing that they've done that because they have Lariat Platinum XLT for the rest of the stuff, but the lower level is
Right.
XL. I'm sorry, Pro instead of XL, like all the gassers. Do you
Right.
think the gassers will ever go to Pro, or is Pro going to be unique to EV?
I think it's unique to EV, and I think part of the mantra is that this is intended for like company trucks and stuff like that. I think that's kind of the mindset.
Okay.
Because when it was first introduced, it was $39,995. That was the price.
What a bargain.
Oh my gosh, and it gives you now that was a short range battery, which is about 200 miles of, like, usable
True.
mileage,
Yep.
roughly. Um, and we've driven the short range battery before. It was silly fast. It's the fastest one we've tested at 3.95 seconds.
Mhm.
On the street, this is not like a prep surface or anything like that. You just anyone can do it. Your mom can do it. If they
Y
can
you just
handle the
mash it.
G-forces, they can do it. Just mash
You
it. That's it.
yeah, yeah, you might get car sick, but that's a different issue.
Well, we dealt with that too. We'll get we'll get to that in a minute. Um, but the point being is that what the Pro gives you is you still have dual motor, you still have the frunk, you still have a good touchscreen, but you don't have the portrait one. So you have
Mhm.
the best screen that comes in the gas model, like King Ranch,
Right.
Lariat, FX4 high
Raptor.
option package, Raptor. Right. That's the little screen that you get on the Lightning. And
Right.
I'm here to tell you that's the best screen because you keep
Yeah.
hard keys. You keep
Yes.
hard keys for the camera and for your HVAC controls and that kind of stuff. And it
Mm,
is really high quality. Like that screen,
it is.
it's great.
You
But
also
you get
get with the Pro, you get the great headlights, even though it's the Pro.
yes, yeah. So you don't get the LED bar that goes across the grill to make like the C clamp,
Mhm.
design theme. You also don't get any LEDs across the tailgate.
Mhm.
You just get a straight up truck.
Right.
18-inch wheels, which make it ride and drive and perform way better than any of the other Lightnings we've tested. Um,
Mhm.
Like notably, it's faster every time, and it rides substantially better. We've had the Platinum, the 22s, that rode horrible. It was the slowest to 60 at 4.1 or 2, I think. And it's just a heavy wheel is what that is.
Yeah.
But you also with the Pro, you get vinyl seats instead of cloth or leather or the massaging leather ones.
Well, they're also not
Um,
lying to you, though, calling them leather and giving you vinyl. These are just vinyl
it's
seats, and they tell you that.
straight up vinyl, right? Straight up vinyl, but you still keep the big console in the middle. You still have like tons of
Mhm.
storage, but you do lose power seats, so you can't move the seats up or down, and they're not
This is
ventilated.
true.
Obviously,
Yep.
they're not heated either. Um, the problem, Craig, why don't you get into price a little bit? Because if you bought that truck today, that truck doesn't exist anymore. It existed for about 6 months. No one could
Yep.
get them, and now it's gone.
Right. Yeah,
Effectively,
so,
that
look,
bargain truck.
I'll just be honest. Look, there's a lot of vehicles that come out that you and I want to buy as soon as they announce them.
Right.
This is one of the ones that was on my list, as much as I'm not the biggest EV fan, and I'll tell you even more why. So, why that's the case after we're done with light, or when we get to the end of the lightning segment.
Right. Right. Right.
But I was in on this thing. $39,000, even with the standard battery of only 230-mile range, whatever it is.
Yeah, you wouldn't shut up
Sign
about it.
me up. Like, if I could find one, I would have bought one.
Mhm.
Um,
We
you
looked.
flat
We
out
looked for one as a company truck.
we looked and
Considered it.
looked and looked, and we flat out just couldn't find one. They didn't exist. Yeah, that's part of that's COVID related as well, by the way.
Right.
Um, so that was a problem. And then this one's a weird, unique off-ball one because you can't even build this anymore in 23. It's
Right.
the Pro with the extended range battery, which I think our sticker on this said 50 or 48.
I think it was right at 50 with because it had some options. It had the max tow package,
Right.
which gives you a ton of extra cooling.
Which is still,
Um,
this is a good deal. 50 grand
yeah,
for
50
what you're getting
grand,
here.
right, for new tech with and something that's that fast. So, and the lock and rear diff. So it had a mechanical lock and
Yep.
rear differential, which so it wasn't like a bone stripped one. It was a well
Right.
equipped Pro.
Well equipped XL or Pro, yes.
Right.
And it's like the XL with the STX package if you want to go to Gas World.
Yeah. 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 That's a good example.
But so for 50 grand, it's still a screaming bargain. You're getting four-wheel drive effectively with a locking diff. You're getting all these great things. But the problem is now, number one, you can't even build this vehicle. You can build a Pro with standard range, and that's it.
Yeah, but
And
extended range battery is not even an option in 23 with
yeah,
the
this
Pro
is
trim.
equivalently a $60,000 truck now, even though you can't even build this
65.
truck.
So
65.
so I ran out the tow
Yeah,
package stuff. It's just under, but if you include destination, it's just under 65,000
yeah.
today
That's just
without the extended range.
uh, that's crazy.
Right.
So
I'm out. At that point,
I'm
I'm
out.
out.
At that point, it's just, and I know. Look, I know trucks have gotten expensive. But it kind of took a lot of thunder away. I will say one good thing before we move to the Lariat, though. This is arguably the best F-150 riding truck. Best riding F-150 we've had. In fact, I'll say best riding vehicle we've had. Now, it's up against some of its own competition, and that is the
Trimmer.
Trimmer and the Raptor.
The Raptor.
Both those vehicles
In
are
different ways.
amazing in
Yeah.
different ways. And there's also a Ranger Trimmer that's out there, still the best riding
It's
vehicle I've
even
ever
better.
driven. But
Yeah. Yeah.
anyways, which is
It's even better.
wild.
Take that
Uh,
Rolls or
yeah.
Bentley.
So anyways, but it rode really good for a 7,000-pound vehicle. It rode great.
Yeah, the
So,
shock tuning was like GTI levels of the perfect balance.
mhm,
Um, and part of that's because you have the independent rear suspension that the EV power plant needs to work.
mhm,
So that none of the other Ford trucks give you that. That's really
mm-mm.
what is making all that difference. The other thing I want to point out too, Craig, is that that was the bass stereo and it bumped incredibly
It
well.
it did.
It was
Not like the
awesome.
Maverick
Not
with
like
the
the Maverick. And I
nice
kept looking around. I kept looking for the Bang& Olufsen speaker grills. Like, did they accidentally put in a good stereo in here? Like, it's really good.
Yeah,
Also, fit and finish is one of the best F-150s we've been
yeah.
in.
It
And of
really was.
late, like
Yeah,
one of the best cars in general we've had of late.
yeah. Everything was solid, everything there was none the panel gaps were good, there was no weird warped plastic that didn't line up, there was no handle or
Right.
cover, screw cover that didn't line up or rattle, there was no rattles in the truck.
At all.
It
At
was
all.
it was better build quality than the Lariat, which you're getting ready to get into. Not that that one was
Yeah,
necessarily bad, but,
but not
it
as good.
was yeah, it was great. So, with
Well,
that
let's
okay,
hop into that. Yeah.
so before we as we transition to the Lariat, I will say a week of EV truck life was nice, it was convenient, it was, well, I'm not say I don't wanna say convenient, that's not the right word. It was novel.
Livable. It was also livable with the right mindset and the right
Right.
habits.
But I mean, it was novel in that I left that truck before we got into the next one thinking, "Hey, you know what? Maybe this is doable." Yes, at times the range would be an issue. In fact, there was a day or 2 that, well, I can't take that because I run out of range, but that's okay. Even though it took a long time to charge, it's okay. You know what? You
Mhm.
could make this work. I could see this happening. So,
Look, I'll
we'll
say
into
for
it.
me, I was even more so in that boat. I was like, "Look, you
Mhm.
gotta do some things different, but I don't drive the same mileage that you do.
Right.
I could probably go 4, maybe 5 days if I was really trying and not charge it and
Sure.
on my
Yeah.
normal routine drive." Now, I couldn't deviate from that.
Right.
I couldn't do random trips to Dallas or something without keeping that in mind, but it's doable. And when you charge to 80 instead of 100, it doesn't take that long. I mean, if you get home at a reasonable hour, plug it in. When you go to work the next morning, it'll at least be at 80,
Yeah, you
and
just
so
yeah.
you're fine. That's that. So let's hop into Lariat because I think we both had diverging feelings as we went on week 2 of, EV back to back. We didn't have any time between them. We
Mhm.
haven't had EV living back to back like that. For those that don't know, when we have a vehicle a week, whether we have 1 or 2 cars that week, we're swapping midweek. So
Mhm.
we each get about 3 effective days and then a day of filming in each car.
Mhm. Mhm.
Deviate some, but that's what we do. So we haven't had to live EV life consecutively that long before.
Yeah, we get
So
small doses of we've had plenty of EVs, but it's been in small doses,
right.
and every time we're like, "That could maybe work." That's kinda where we leave it with, and
That's
so
kinda where it leaves. Right. Right,
but
right.
let's get into week 2 of the Lariat. Tell us about the Lariat.
Okay, so Larry is, we've had the Platinum before. We've driven the XLT, I believe, at that event last year. But on loan, we've had the Platinum, and then we've had the Pro. Well, now we go to Lariat, which is like, just above the XLT, below the Platinum. So it's the second from the top in terms of price and everything else, and it's $80,000. That's extended range, and that gives you the bigger screen, which is I believe it's optional on the Lariat, standard on the Platinum, and it gives you that vertical screen, the portrait.
Yep. Mhm.
We both left with, okay, well, if you're doing iTunes, I'm not, sorry, not iTunes, Apple CarPlay. Do you Apple CarPlay? It gives that screen to the top, and then you maintain a lot of the touch controls below it.
Yeah,
But
that's
instead
pretty
of
cool.
having, yeah, it worked. But instead of having a hard key for like HVAC and that kind of stuff, you would have to hit a tab on the screen, and then it would take like half of the screen with a scroll, like temperature gauge, and you have to drag your finger up or down or whatever. It was just objectively worse than the Pro was to live with. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah, there's no way around it.
no way around it. It's worse to work with. Now, does it
Mm,
look cooler? That can be
mm,
argued. I prefer the other layout, the landscape over portrait. That's just
mm.
preference though. But
Yep.
functionally, the Pro is better. Um, Now the ways that the Lariat was better is that it did have the Bang& Olufsen stereo,
Mhm.
so it did sound a little better, but
It
not as
did.
much better than I thought it was going to. It wasn't that big of a gap between the two.
True.
But you did have like a sub of some sort, so it balanced the bass and a little bit better. And most importantly, Craig, you gained radar cruise control,
Yes,
which is
with the
very
smart
helpful
cruise, with the
with the Blue Cruise,
or
which
assistant cruise. Well, I'm talking about the assistant cruise control where
oh
it actually does the speed limit
oh
thing
oh
where
oh
it
yeah yeah yeah.
changes for you. You set the
Well,
cruise control, and it maintains the speed through speed zones. So if it goes to 55, it goes to 55. 70 jumps
yes.
it up to 70. That is a game changer. I don't know why no one else can do that.
Well, and then beyond that, so it's reading not cameras, speed signs as you're driving. I've actually had a hiccup with this, and it's when you're driving on the interstate and you're in the right lane or the middle lane. There's a particular exit. There's actually 2 exits that I pass on the way to work that it reads the exit ramp speed.
Mm,
And then you're doing 70 miles an hour on the interstate, and all of a sudden it's slamming on the brakes to get to 35 in a hurry.
mm,
And that's that I can't find a way to program around that. It's happened in every F-150 with that I've had on that particular road.
hmm.
Um, Probably an anomaly. If you're on rural like county roads or highways like you're doing, it's freaking epic because you can also program like, hey, it says 70, but I really want to do maybe 74 or
Mhm,
75, and
mhm.
it'll add your tolerance level over the speed limit in every zone. So that you
Right.
come up on a 35, it then puts you at 4 over or 5 over, whatever you put it
Mhm.
at.
Right.
That's just awesome. Really, really good.
Yeah.
So I like that Larry had that. I also love that it had heated and cooled seats and it's leather, which felt like a little bit nicer vinyl. Definitely not leather still.
Mhm.
Um, but with the ventilation seats, you don't stick to it. And with the heated seats, you never get too cold in
Sure.
it. So, and you gained the heated steering wheel too. So you had like some niceties that came with it. Um, you also gained, I say gain with air quotes, 20-inch wheels over the 18s,
Mhm.
which I thought looked very nice. They're directional. You
Mhm.
don't like directional wheels, but like the finish
Mhm.
was nice. The paint color was nice.
Yeah.
Um, but it was a little bit slower and
Mhm.
not a ton. It was 4.06 to 60 was our best. And it rode worse.
Yeah.
So, I mean, not terrible, not as bad as the Platinum, but the brilliance of the 18s were gone. It just rode fine
Yeah,
at that point.
other than the features, it effectively performed worse, basically
Right.
because of wheels.
Totally because of wheels. Because
Yeah.
I've got a feeling the spring and shock rate are the same on all of them, and
Yeah,
it
sure.
shows. So,
Mhm. Uh,
um,
you
yeah.
touched on Blue Cruise. Talk about the Blue Cruise, quote, unquote, Blue
Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo.
Cruise.
This is my trigger of the month right now. Um, Blue Cruise, this is not the first time we've used it. We had it actually, the last time we used it was in the Lightning as well, and it was just as terrible then. Um, that's not really true. It's not ping-ponging as much now as it was last summer, but in the Lariat, you would turn on lane keep with the cruise control on, and it would say with a big you would take over the digital cluster and say, "Blue Cruise is active. Be
Mhm.
prepared to regain control."
Made a big deal about it.
Big deal about it, meaning you can let your hands off the wheel.
Mhm.
Now, I'm not exaggerating. Within the same amount of time that normal lane keep and regular 150s would say, "Hey, grab the wheel," because you're not guiding it in the lane. Even though the system's very good and it lane centers really, really good on the F-150s, like it is on a rail.
Mhm.
Um, it's competent. It doesn't feel like you're drunk in it. Whereas some of these lane keeps they're just kind of they're drifting so much in the lane. You're like, I'm just gonna do it on my own. I'd rather do it myself. This was not that. Regular Ford trucks do really good. Now Blue Cruise comes on. It does the exact same thing as lane keep. It says, "Hey, grab the wheel." You grab the wheel. It resets. You let go of the wheel within like 15 seconds. "Hey, dude, grab the wheel." So Blue Cruise, as far as I can tell, just doesn't work at all. Um, I've tried it in several settings. I know you've tried it in different environments too. I have not found a situation where I can let go of the wheel more than about 30 seconds, which is exactly what the old normal non-Blue Cruise system does. So as far as I can tell, it just doesn't work, at least
Mhm.
in North Texas. So I don't know if you had any different experience with that.
No, I had a similar experience. It didn't annoy me as much, but my big annoyance with it was not so much that it didn't just do everything for you. My annoyance was in a regular F-150 when you do the radar cruise control and the lane centering,
Mhm.
it doesn't have this camera pointing at your face, making sure you're paying attention, making a big deal that you need to pay attention because I'm driving now, so pay attention. It
Right.
just centers the truck and follows the car in front.
Right.
And if you let go of the steering wheel, it says, "Hey, stay on the steering wheel."
Keep your hand on the wheel. It wants to feel
Yeah,
feedback, resistance in the wheel. That's all it is.
get it. It actually works really good in regular F-150s.
Totally.
The
Yeah.
Blue Crews, they install these cameras because they're really nervous from all these Tesla accidents that, hey, we need to make sure the
Thanks,
person's
Tesla.
paying attention so that we don't wreck these cars and have Tesla news like they're having. And I get it. I totally
Sure.
understand that. And so it does but the problem is it doesn't really drive itself anywhere, not even on the interstate. So you're like, well,
Why have it
I
then?
don't know what advantage Blue Cruise gives you over just regular lane centering and radar cruise control. What
Right.
it does is it puts a camera in your face. You don't see it, but it's there.
You see it
And
when you film it with a GoPro. It's this purple LED it's there,
so
but to the naked eye,
yeah.
you don't see it.
So there are two things that happen that constantly set it off, and it beeps at you and it makes all these noises, and it says, "Watch the road, beep 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 beep, watch the road, watch the road." And you're like, "What is your deal?"
Yeah,
Here's
calm
the two
down.
things I kept doing that were very normal in my truck, or to do in a truck, and it kept thinking I was not watching the road. I would keep my eyes looking down the road, paying attention, pull a coffee cup up to my mouth, take a sip, still looking down the road, but my coffee cup is blocking my face now because I'm drinking from it. And I'm taking a slow
Mm,
sip. It's a little hot, but not a quick one. Just long enough that the camera's like, "Uh-oh, I can't see his face. Watch the," and it starts sending all the alerts.
panic, panic,
And
panic.
you're like,
Yeah.
"Dude, I'm just taking a sip of coffee." So that was annoying.
Yeah,
2, that big touchscreen you talked about earlier that is not as good because I don't care how long you drive, it's intuitive. In fact, it's easy to use at a
sure.
standstill. But if you're driving and trying to pay attention to the road, you'll never be able to memorize exactly where that touchscreen is for the temperature control or ball chillers because you have to actually watch your index finger touch the actual screen to make sure it's right.
Yeah,
And so
you literally have to take your eye off the road to use it.
you literally have to take it off the road to touch these touch screens because there's no physical buttons you can just feel.
Right.
So as I'm doing that, I do take my eyes off the road. I go look at the touch screen and I'm making sure I've got something right and maybe doing another setting while I'm there real quick, trying to glance back to the road while I'm doing it. But my face is turned to look towards this touch screen long enough that it does the same freak out thing again. Whoa, whoa, whoa,
Right.
watch the road. Beep, beep, beep. Alert. I'm like, I'm not looking at the road because your stupid touch screen. It's just, it was kind of maddening, kind of frustrating.
Yeah, it just doesn't work.
No.
And here's the problem too is that if you're a shareholder of Ford, your company has spent a lot of money on this tech that just doesn't work.
No.
And I understand the concern about liability that you mentioned a minute ago. Like
Mhm.
I get it, that's real. And
Yeah.
that's real because these systems, look, we've had almost 10 years of, hey, the future is here. Buy your Tesla, it will be a cab for you while you're sleeping. It'll be a
Yeah.
driverless car. It doesn't work.
That just
And
doesn't
this is
work.
the same case. Until
Yep.
you put every car speaking the same language on a shared network, and then we can zipper merge at 90 miles an hour safely,
Yeah.
automatedly,
Yeah.
it's just not gonna happen.
It's not happening.
And that's what's happening here. It just can't be done, not
Right.
effectively. And so I'll say right now, I would rather have a Ford without Blue Cruise because, like you said earlier, if you do road trips, a lot of highway, the lane keep on a regular 150 is really quite good. It's one of the
It
best
is.
out there.
It's as good as the Kias out there.
Right, it's worth having, and I don't
Yeah.
like driver assistance stuff like that, but it's worth having if you're doing road trips because you can let it take over and
Mhm.
look back and yell at your kids and tell them to calm down, and
For
it's
just
gonna
a
have your
second.
back for a
Yeah.
few seconds at a time,
Yeah.
and it's gonna keep you in the lane, and if someone swerves over, it will react and panic and get your attention, so
Right.
it's not without its benefits.
And that's where it's helpful. Yeah.
Exactly. Whereas Blue Cruise isn't as good at that because it's got the camera in your face.
Yeah.
So basically, you have to be watching with the attention as if you're driving, but
Mhm.
you can't actually drive yourself because it's doing it. It's
Right.
just a mess. And
Yeah.
I'm going to go by this until I can check emails on my phone on the way to work. We don't need any of these systems. We
Yeah.
don't lie to me and tell me you have a self driving. It's not there.
Yeah,
So
you don't have it. You're just lying
right,
to us.
there's
So
no gain otherwise.
quit lying to us. Okay, Brian. So that wraps up 2 weeks in EVs. And so I kind of
Yep.
mentioned how we felt about normally a week in an EV. We're like, it's novel, it's interesting, this could work. 2 weeks of EV straight. You and I having to swap cords and cables and make sure we have them.
Oh
One time we
yeah,
were
and
swapping, you forgot a cable, and you had to go
I had to
back and
go back
get it.
home. Yeah. And by the
um,
way, use up some of the range I was saving for you to use because I had
and
to
you
go
and
back home and get the
yeah,
cord.
you
Yeah,
and I have wives that like to park in spots that are close to these chart plugs in our house, in our garages.
it's a
We have to
shuffle.
we
Yeah.
have to move. There's this car shuffle every time we have to plug it in. Um, how did you feel about the EV life after 2 weeks straight?
Craig, with the utmost optimism going into this, I can tell you it is not for me. Not that it's not for some. I will still argue that if you live in a congested area and you've got slow rolling traffic, that's where EVs need to be. That's
Mhm.
perfect because then you don't have this idling smog machine that is just using a bunch of
Sure.
energy when you're not propelling forward.
Yeah.
Conversely or inversely, EVs on sustained highway drives take a ton of energy. It takes a
Yes.
ton of juice to keep these brick-sized trucks spinning down the highway, at which
Mhm.
point internal combustion is more efficient in that scenario. It
Right.
just is, flat out.
Mhm.
Now, overall, throughout your every bit of driving you do, no, the EV is still gonna come out a little bit ahead. I'm not gonna go into conspiracy theory stuff, but I still have questions about, like, what's the end of life of an EV battery when we have, in 10, maybe 20 years from now, you can only rebuild batteries so much until, like, that core is dead. Okay, well, when all these Tesla bought batteries and every other brand battery is sitting around, like, how do we handle that? I'm sure someone will come up with a
Yeah.
good way to reuse that energy, but that's something we'll have to figure out too. So it's not like this totally green thing. Um, and there, this to put it as simply as possible, it's just not as convenient as gasoline is.
No.
It's actually more of a nuisance to live with than just a gas car is.
Mhm.
You can stop with most cars, and in less than 5 minutes, you've increased 300 miles of range like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Um, and you and I are busy. Sometimes, like, you had a night where you got back at 9 p.m. and
Yeah.
you plugged it in, and you
Mhm.
needed range the next day for whatever
Mhm.
you're doing. And you woke up the next morning, and it was like 80% or something. It hadn't hit the
Yeah.
100 that you needed.
And my garage
That's
was really hot.
yeah, these things radiate a ton of heat.
Mhm.
Um, and some of them have cooling fans that run when they're charging. It sounds like a helicopter's in the garage. So,
Mhm.
you know, I just don't know what the gain really is. And I'm gonna put an exclamation point on if you're gonna do the EV efficient urban, like, hey, I bought this as a tool for a job, like to commute, and I don't want to go to gas stations anymore, and maybe I want to
Mhm.
just be as efficient as I can be. These have no business being in trucks.
Mhm.
Lightnings, Hummers, all the Chevy Silverado EV that's coming, all the Ram, whatever is coming up down the Ram Revolution, all these things, it makes the least sense there to me because you can't tow with them distances. You can take your boat to the lake if you live near the lake. That's fine. Um, but it's still not going to be a road trip thing because whenever you do run out of juice, you have to have something like a Tesla supercharger, which Tesla does have figured out the most. Credit where it's
Mhm.
due. But the Lightnings and these big behemoths, they are not efficient.
No.
I'm sorry, they're just not. They are still a brick in the wind.
Yep.
Chevy Volt and Bolt and, what's the Nissan, the Leaf,
Mhm.
those make the most sense to me as an
Yep.
EV, that type of vehicle.
No, I totally agree, and it kinda maybe the last thing I'll add to the EV part is, um, the sorry, looking something up.
That's okay.
Um, there's the whole, it doesn't it's heavy.
It's heavy,
So,
yes,
the Lightnings weigh 7,000 pounds.
which is a lot, by the
The
way.
Ram EV, there's a the new Ram EV coming out is getting a lot of press because it has 500 miles range. Awesome.
Yeah,
You wanna know how they did that? Their battery
me
weighs 4,000 pounds, which is 2,000 pounds more than the F-150, which means that truck's gonna weigh
yeah.
9,000 pounds.
Oh, and by
That's
the
just
way, that
stupid.
that truck's not aluminum body to start with,
Yeah.
and they're projecting 0 to 60 in 4.4. That's bad. That
Yeah.
tells you how heavy that thing is.
Yeah.
Physics are fighting it that much.
Yep.
That's EV's hat trick. And
Yeah.
the Lightning's credit where it's due. If you want something that's fast, 0 to 60 in, like, under 100, those things rip. They
Yeah.
are TRX levels fast. They are
Mhm.
real quick.
Yep.
Not efficient, but they're quick, and I get the novelty like you said earlier. I understand
Right.
that novelty part of it.
Yeah.
But it is one-dimensional, and it gets old fast. If you're a driver and you care about weight and braking, not that you look at this for pickups, but, like, Raptors can be really fun on back roads.
Mhm.
The Lightnings aren't so much.
No.
They feel very front-wheel drive and very heavy, and they plow. That's just what they
Yeah.
are.
It just anyways, at the end of the 2-week experience, it get a little exhausting. I was ready for a gasser I can just plug in. I mean, just fill up. I don't
Just
have to
juice up, yeah.
I can just stop at anywhere I want. I don't have to worry about range. It was such a workout. My garage isn't hot. I don't have to swap all these cars out. I don't have to
Right.
pull a plug in and out and carry it with me and make sure I don't forget it in case I need it. And just it was a little bit of a workout. And then also
It
I
takes
had to
some
tow a
planning.
little bit. I had to do some towing.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah,
Um,
talk about that. I
yeah,
didn't do this, you did, so I'm really curious, actually. Give us
our
some
first
feedback on that.
our first towing experience, and this will be in the video as well. But I plugged in a 2,000 pound, 16-foot utility tandem axle trailer.
Mhm.
Um, and that's pretty smart. The onboard software is like, all right, you plugged in a trailer. We told us what size it is. It's guesstimating. Okay, I guesstimate your range now is 50% of what you were. But it says it'll change as we go. It'll get metrics and give you
It'll
a
learn.
true. It knows people are concerned about range. It does a really good job of giving you accurate range numbers, so that anxiety is decreased, which is good. But what happened is I had like 300-mile range. I plugged it in, and now all of a sudden I only had 160-mile range. Like, Oh,
Oof, that's a
okay.
lot.
But now I was driving it empty, so it was not as impactful as it originally thought, and it bumped me up to 178 miles. So I was like, okay, a little
So you
better,
gained 18 miles back.
right?
Okay,
But then
just
I
driving
actually
reasonably though.
right, but then I actually loaded it with the ATV, which we're actually going to be start reviewing ATV soon
Yeah,
on
yeah. We're gonna close with
TTC.
that. Let's
Yeah.
close with that. Yeah, yeah.
So a little preview there. And so I put an extra like 800, 900 pounds on it. Not a whole lot more. And now my range dropped to about 150. So,
Oh, so
um,
it went down.
yeah, so I definitely, it towed it fine. In fact, it was the best riding things I've ever driven, well, other than my Land Cruiser. My Land Cruiser may ride better with a trailer. But anyways, not the point.
Not the point.
It rode really
And
good. It had plenty of power. Plenty
this
of
is
power.
the Lariat, not the Pro. You were in the Lariat on this
Yes,
one, right?
correct,
Okay.
correct. Plenty of power, no issues as far as it actually being able to tow anything. So if you hear any of
Okay.
that crap, people are lying to you. It's just like most gassers, you lose half your range and it's an issue. So,
Yeah, the only difference is with a
yeah,
gasser, along the way you can refill in a matter of minutes.
right.
There's the problem with the EV. If you do tow and you're like, hey, I'm going to take this boat on a camping trip that's 200 miles away, and it's
Which is
not
usually in the
happening.
middle of nowhere. It's
Right.
not going to be a charger there. It's not happening.
Exactly. It's just not going
Period.
to happen.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
And then when
all
you
right.
do the EV thing like that, Craig, you talk about the shuffle and the hustle. Well, all of a sudden, one of the, Craig and I are blessed enough to have a bunch of cars sitting around all the time because of the show and our project cars and whatever. It's a shuffle. And now you
Yeah.
got one car that's a prima donna that has to get in the garage, and your wife's car's outside and all this
Yeah.
stuff. And it's like, oh man. So yeah.
Yeah. That's annoying. Here's the real answer. We talked about this on the way home today. We'll just put our conversation in here.
There you go.
There's a really good solution to this whole problem. Because look, the new EPA regulations came out. They're going to be stricter. They're not as bad as people are reporting them, but they really are trying to clamp down on emissions
Yeah,
going
I get
into
that.
the air. I get it. To do that, we're going to need a lot of plug-in hybrid vehicles, which is the answer, or also known as
Yes.
PHEVs, which is what
Yes.
Mazda calls them. And that would work. Like, give me the F-150 power boost, but with plug-in juice that gives me 30 miles range. That would
Yes,
be
because
amazing.
because then the problem with that is that when you're not the problem, the benefit of that is that you can do the juice thing when you want to. You're not obligated to do so. Right. So say your wife's car's in the garage and you don't want to move things around. You can just not move things around and just run on gas the next day. No
Yeah, you
big
just go
deal.
start the truck and drive, and it's still a hybrid, so it's still getting good mileage.
Right. It still gets
Yeah.
really good mileage. In fact, they
Yeah.
do great on the highway with those too.
Yeah.
And then you go, oh, you know what? Hey, we'll stop at lunch at this place. Oh, hey, there's a plug. We might as well plug it in. Well, then
Yeah,
you
well,
might get 10, 20
well-
miles of range out of that.
Well, and then it becomes an advantage, but not a disadvantage. So you got the pros of both worlds. You got the pros of gas in that you've got range everywhere,
Right.
and still, but then you get the pros of the EV part where you get a little assisted efficiency, so the gas motor's not working as hard as it has to.
Right.
And then you also get the additional pro of an EV of premium parking, like at a shopping center.
Yeah.
EV parking's always right up front. You're a plug-in hybrid, plug it in and park up front.
By the way, have you taken any of the electric cars to Whole Foods in Fort Worth?
No.
Little inside baseball for our viewers here or our listeners here. None of them work. There's like 4 electric chargers, and I've had a few times I'm like, you know what? I gotta I'm gonna go to Whole Foods on purpose to get the milk because I know they have a plug and I need to get a little bit. This actually helped me because it's not that far of the way. It's kind of like, okay, cool. I'll go there. I've moved around to all of them. None of them work. None of them work. And so from now on, when we have Raptors on loan like we do right now, I'm just going to park there just to make people upset.
They don't work anyways. So
doesn't matter. Right.
Right. And so that's the magic of the PHEV. You get all that goodness. And then also if you do decide to do the car shuffle and plug it in your garage, you probably only need to charge it for 2 hours at the most, Brian, and then you can put everything back. It doesn't take all night.
Man, let's I know this is a Ford episode, but let's go back to its former sister cousin, Mazda. In the CX-90, we went to San Francisco recently, and we've covered this on the show, I know. And we drove the PHEV, and we drove around the Bay, and we did the math. For you to drive this thing daily in your normal drive, Craig, you would get effectively 60 miles out of 1 gallon of gasoline.
Yeah, an effective 60 miles a gallon, which I know people are going to argue that number, but because look, when the gas motor comes on, I'm not getting that. I understand. But when the gas motor is not on, I'm in EV mode and I'm getting infinity miles per gallon. So, it comes out to 60 effective miles per gallon.
Oh my gosh. And you can plug it in with a 110 plug, nothing dryer plug crazy, like anywhere you can plug this thing in at.
Yes.
And by the time your work shift is done, you come home, it's back to 100 again.
Yes.
I mean, it's just, It's incredible,
Yes.
and by the way, it still handles just as good as the gas one does, maybe
Mhm.
even better. It felt
Mhm.
lighter to me on its feet than the gas flavor did. It's
Mhm.
just that it opened my eyes to look, I'm still not chasing PHEV. My drive's
No.
not long enough that I really have to think about that. I'm lucky that the distance is not that far where I could drive a Raptor every day. I've done it before. I can do it. It's not great when gas is expensive, but it's doable, right?
Mhm.
But for the person that does have mileage or just doesn't want to support gasoline and they gotta find something in between, it's an incredible option. It really, to me, is the answer for going green.
Absolutely. So,
Um,
Brian, enough of that crap, though. Let's talk about the Raptor effing R.
yes.
You're in it right now. I have not been able to put my butt in its seat yet, but I am going to very soon. Probably tomorrow night, we're making the switch
Yep.
as of this
I'm
recording.
not excited about that, but,
Right,
I've
it's one of the ones we
conceded.
don't like to switch. We're like, you can't have it back. um,
Yeah, yeah.
so, but it's the not just the regular Raptor, it's the R. Tell us what that means, and well, what do you think so far? Any good?
Well, first of all, people call it the Raptor R. I call it the Raptor R because this is like the truck for John Cena. That's what this thing is. It is freaking epic. And look, last time you and I drove a Ram TRX, in fact, I was excited to get you into this. Was last October, I think, is when we drove one.
Hmm.
I was like, Craig, you've never driven one. You got to drive this. And you're like, I am not excited about this. You just
Right.
don't give a crap about the
No.
egomaniac affliction shirt wearing because TRXs just come with affliction shirts that like they're like the print is on the seat. I think it's just that kind of crap.
Yeah,
Um,
just exhausting.
and and it's a bar busting brawler of a truck. Not
Yeah,
ragging
it's
on
cool in
anyone
its
that
own
has
way.
it, right? But it's a little more tramp stampy than the Raptor R is,
Mm,
and that's
good
what
way
I'm
to put
getting
that.
at.
Yeah.
Right. We both left the T-Rex going in awe, like, "This is incredible. I can't
Uh,
believe Dodge has made this or Ram has made this."
Amazing vehicle. I can't believe anyone's made. Yeah, for
Yes,
let alone
major
Dodge. Yeah,
credit to them for doing
yeah,
it. I'm so glad it exists. I don't want it, but I love driving them when I get the chance, and I don't blame
sure.
anyone for getting one. I'm not gonna,
Right.
like, it's a
Absolutely.
super cool truck.
Yeah.
Um, I got in the Raptor R and I was like, I really like the V6. In fact, in my mind, I'm going, look, the V6 is actually kind of attainable. If I really tried, I could get a Gen 2. I couldn't get a Gen 1 or Gen 3, but I get a Gen 2 EcoBoost. I don't want to do a Gen 1 again. I've owned that in the past. Like, I want to have a different experience. But the EcoBoost is so good. I'm like, look, I would take the EcoBoost over the TRX because it just seems like a more cohesive product. I
Hmm.
would not take the TRX to go run Baja. I
Right.
would take any Raptor and go run Baja, any of them,
Absolutely.
and wouldn't fret it at all. Um, so fast forward, the Raptor R gets dropped off Monday. I'm excited. I'm not like as excited as I am right now about it, but I am excited about it because I just like Raptors. I've never met a Raptor I didn't like. Um, and I started it up and I heard the Coyote sounding exhaust, but not like the straight pipe sounding Coyote, more of like a truck Coyote, like a burble to it. And I went, "Well, crap, that's the character everyone was missing out of the V6. Like, they fixed it.
Mm.
By
Yep.
by George, they fixed it. That's it." And I knew within 10 feet that this is the truck for me. Like, I really, really like it. And then, of course, you lay into it, and it sounds like a Shelby GT500. And you put it in sport mode and 4 auto, and it just claws the earth. And I think it slows the earth's rotation a little bit every time you do it. I mean, it's nuts. And then the best part, because I'm gonna skip most of the Raptor stuff, because like that's just the competent F-150 stuff that just like the same thing that the Lightning had going for it. Fit and finish is solid in it. This has the Recaro seats that are ventilated and heated. They're super comfortable. I would go anywhere in this thing. Um, Now a little bit of technical background. This thing has 37-inch tires. You cannot get the V8 without 37s, which I think is a bit of a misstep and a bit of a bummer because that
Hmm.
slows the thing down. But this is top trim. It's $110,000. Like they threw everything at it. Um, and what really happens, Craig, is you realize you can put it in two-wheel drive, which the Ram will never ever let you do, and you can just do burnouts at will at all times. You turn traction and stability off, and it drifts happily. It does not step in and stop you. It's just a playful brawler of a thing that when you put the exhaust in quiet mode, no one knows what you're in. It's not so in your face aesthetically that people are like, "Oh, that's a Ram. Oh, it's loud all the time." No, it can be the quiet. You can go to work with it and not offend anyone and just go about your day. And that's the thing that the Ram won't give you. And I'm really appealed that the Jekyll and Hyde thing is there, and it does them both 100%.
No, it's amazing. I have only heard you drive it, and I hear the rumble in the background. I'm sure
And
some of
the
it's some synthetic speaker stuff, but it sounds amazing. And every time you answer the phone and you're in it, you go, "Sorry, I just got done doing painting a few 11s." And I'm like, "Am I gonna have any tire left when I get it?" So,
well, just so we're clear, those tires weren't perfect when I got it.
uh-huh.
And there is tire left. Those KO2s last a long time apparently. And I've got to tell you, I fixed the one issue it had when we got it, Craig.
Mm.
The tires were out of balance when I got it, to the point that I was like, "Whoa,
Mm.
before Craig takes us on his little trip this weekend, we might need to balance these."
Okay, okay.
So, after 2 days of burnouts, I'm happy to report the balance problem is gone.
Well, that's good.
So, they are round again.
Okay,
So,
well,
fixed.
I will say this. I will say it's nice leaving EV world to go into this world. For
You know, Ford set us up to not like the Lightning by doing that. They gave us 2
yeah,
weeks
it's
of
their
Lightning.
fault. It's their
Yeah,
fault.
and then a straight up dinosaur. Like, not only is it running
Yeah.
dino juice, it is a dinosaur.
But Brian, I'm gonna tell you this though. I'm gonna be able to go on a trip that's 3 hours away from home,
Mhm.
which means I'm gonna need to refuel or recharge whether I was in an EV or a gas.
Yep.
There's not an EV I've checked, there's not an EV charging station out where I'm going. I'm gonna be towing a boat,
Mhm.
and the Raptor R has the highest tow rating of all the Raptors, like 8,200 pounds or something like that, which will
Solid.
be
Yeah,
plenty for what I'm towing.
totally.
And when I do run out of juice, I will just pull over at any gas station, probably a Buc-ee's, and just refuel in 10 minutes, get a bunch of grub, and be on my way again. And
And that's
it's
just
gonna
it,
be
Craig.
great.
And then when you get to another town because you got single digit fuel economy because you're having too much fun, you can recharge it again. No problem.
Right. It's
Right?
no problem.
At will. Any town you can recharge this at quickly.
Man, what a
Man,
relief. What a great cleansing thing to switch to from the EVs.
it gives me
Um,
hope, Craig. Ford's not
yeah,
dead, right?
they're not dead.
Not that they were. The Lightning's still an
No, no,
impressive product. It's just not
yeah,
for us.
it's just different. Yeah,
Um, it's different, but man, God, they still know how to party. It's
they
incredible.
they know how to party. I'm glad they did it. I'm with you. I wish they put 35s on it. Maybe that's the move. Win the lottery, you buy that and put 35s on it. That's probably the move.
Yeah, I would
Um,
actually do if I bought it, I would actually put 35s on it and rip the stickers off the side that say Raptor with a
or
bunch
would
of
you just
eights
add
in it.
more? Or would you add more R's to the end?
That's right. I would take the eights off and just add R's and wrap
Okay,
it.
okay.
It'd be on the driver's side of the bed and wrap the R's all the way around to the passenger rear door. Just go wrap
That would
horseshoe
be
around it.
yeah, that would be great. I like that. Also, look, the TRX, thank you. Again, like you said earlier, I'm glad they made that because if nothing else, it got us the Raptor R. I don't know if we get the Raptor R without the TRX.
Man, that's a good point. I hate to admit that because I got to take it another level for you, Craig. A little bit of T-Rex inception. If the Gen 1 Raptor didn't exist, the T-Rex would never exist either. So it's
That's
this
true
back and
too.
forth.
That's yeah, very
And
good. Hmm.
here's the big question, Craig. Where do they go next? Because I like this is probably for another podcast, and in fact, I think it should be. But I feel like the motor that's in this Raptor R might be peak V8. It might be
Oh,
peak
it
internal
is.
combustion.
I'm sure the future is the EcoBoost with a plug-in hybrid, which will be cool in its own way, but it won't be the same.
Yeah, man, I guess so. But like this thing, you could sink it to the mirrors and it would still drive out. I don't know if
Yeah.
how are they going to seal hybrid stuff. I'm sure they can. I'm sure it can be done. But
Yeah, they'll figure it out, but
yeah,
it won't sound the same.
no, it won't. Look, in market, put on record. This is going up. I don't know when or if. I know when. I don't know if. I do know if. I don't know when. I'll own one of these at some point. It's going to happen.
Okay, all right. It's marked. We've got it on this episode 26, 27, whichever one it is. Okay, Brian, let's close with this. I mentioned the ATVs I towed earlier with the Lightning. Why
Oh
are we getting
yes.
ATVs? What's coming to TTC? What's going on?
Oh man, I'm excited about this. So, kind of, I'll give this a short version. Basically, Polaris reached out to us late last year and said, "Hey, we are targeting truck buyers in Texas in particular." And I said, "Oh, that's great. We do that. That's literally our name." And she goes, "Yeah, I know. That's how I found you." Um, so after my ignorance was solved, she said, "Let me know if you have anything in mind that you would like to test and put on the show. Do some reviews." I told her, "Look, if nothing else, we'd like to have these as objects to tow for tow testing on the trucks and
Hmm.
have them featured in the background as well as our reviews. But, I'd like to do more than just a review because I think it's really cool." And holidays happen, Craig, Christmas, New Year's, Thanksgiving, all that stuff, birthdays and everything else. And I kind of forgot about it. She did too. And luckily, we touched base again about a month ago, maybe a little more than that. And she said, "Yeah, we're still wanting to do that. Let me know what you want." And I told her what area we want to go off roading at. There's a mud off road park near Houston. We want to test one of the products at. And she goes, "Great, I've got the perfect product for that. It is it's a 23 Polaris. It's an ATV, so it's a Sportsman 850, and this is the High Lifter Edition,
Yes.
which gives you virtually tractor paddle tires,
Oh,
um,
yeah.
plus a lift and plus the high clearance control arms. They arc up.
Yep.
They
They
don't arc.
are.
Yeah, they don't arc down like a Suburban independent rear suspension does. They arc
Right.
up. Um, and it will just go over anything. And I looked at this and I thought these tires are optically they're irritating to the neighbors. I can just tell you. You look at this and people go, "I'm offended by that." That's how crazy it looks. It's got
Uh,
fans mounted on the front rack. So the radiator and its cooling fans are not vertically mounted. They're horizontally mounted to avoid mud getting caked into it. And it's right in front of the handlebars. It's on top instead of down low in the front. Super cool stuff like that.
right.
A snorkel for the engine, another snorkel for the clutch pack and CVT. CVT in a better way, not a bad way on these. And it's just rad. I was like, "Great, we'll take it, send it to us." I'd love to see that. And then she goes, "Hey, we're already sending a truck. Can I send you a side by side as well?" And me being smart for one moment, finally I said, yeah, send it. Let's go." So time goes on, we kind of forget about it. We hear, "Hey, it's coming next week." Great. Well, next week meant the next day.
Mhm.
And Saturday morning, I get a call from a kind man named Lewis, and he said, "Hey, I'm 15 minutes out." And I said, "Who are you and what are you bringing?" And he said, "Oh, I'm bringing the ATVs." Okay, cool. So next thing you know, Craig, there's a 53-foot semi backing down my street. And of course, the neighbors again are like, here go the guys. They say they're not drug dealers, but they keep getting things brought to the house. I'm really confused." Um, and this guy rolls out these two machines and we signed the contract, and then we have these things for 3 months, Craig. So we get
Yeah.
to really dive into them and do some cool stuff. The side by side is a 1000 cc um, Polaris Ranger, and so it's the utilitarian one, but this is the Texas edition, which gives it
Mm.
also the lift kit and the winch and better wheels and tires. And man, we've played with them in our neighborhoods and some like kind of our local trails. They're incredible, man. Their approach and breakover,
Yep.
they're great. They're really good. I see why people get them.
Yep.
They are expensive, and we'll get into that
Yep.
in our reviews, but there's
Yep.
a place for them.
Absolutely. Well, looking forward to that, and those will probably be featured on our Texas Truck channel,
Yeah, they'll be on
or
the main channel. They'll go on
oh,
the
they'll
main
be on the
channel.
main channel.
Yep.
So, and then we still have our ongoing unplugged stuff going on. Project cars, that LR3 and Land Cruiser. We'll get you some updates on that maybe on the next show.
Yep.
But until then, Brian, this was fun. We enjoyed our Ford run. We got some other cool stuff coming down the
Oh,
pipe.
oh,
And
hey, we've got one more
oh,
Ford coming, Craig.
well, we do have. Yes, we do.
We get the Bronco back that you broke.
Yes, we got a Bronco back with a starter that works. Thank
Right.
goodness. So,
Broke while you had it. Let's be clear.
hey, that was one of the good things about the EV. I never worried about the starter going out. I will say that.
That's a good point.
And on that, Brian, thanks for everybody that listened. Those 4 or 5, I appreciate all 4 or 5 of you.
Thanks,
And
Steven.
but thanks for listening to this ramble, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Take care.